Okay, since there's not a whole lot of exciting things to talk about, I think I'm gonna do a roundup of software today. And so many people now are trying to make older systems last longer because it's just becoming such an expensive hobby now to get into computer gaming or PC in general, or even to try to update your system. And over the years, we've done a lot of tutorials covering some of the best utilities that are free that just help you take better control of your system. So today I'm kind of giving you a supercut of all of those utilities, well actually like our top 5 plus an honorable mention that I feel every system should have, whether you think you're going to need it or not, because chances are it'll be useful for you at some point. And the best part is they are all absolutely free forever. They're not like trial periods or any of that shit. You download it once and you get to keep it. Okay, so the first one that we think, even if you install nothing else on this list, install Revo Uninstaller. It sounds like such an oxymoron in the name. The best part about Revo Uninstaller is it gets all the traces of the programs that the uninstallers leave behind. Developers never really put a whole lot of effort into removing their shit off your system. They just put all their effort into embedding it in every place, all levels of the registry and all of these profiles left everywhere in your system. And over the years and years of using your system, you can have just tons of these files and traces, not only taking up potential space, but also just cluttering the registry. If you've ever booted up Windows and you're getting some random error popping up and you're like, I don't even have this program installed anymore. Why am I getting this blah, 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 could not be accessed, yada, yada. Like, you get some of the weirdest stuff because uninstallers just never, ever clean out all of the files that are left behind. So I'm gonna show you an example right now. So this is Revo Uninstaller right here. It will automatically show you everything that's installed on your system. It'll show you when it was installed. It'll show you what company it's from, even the website where it's from, and including Windows apps. And now this is what makes Revo Uninstaller, in my opinion, just that important, is the fact that you can use it to get rid of not only bloatware that may have come, say if you're on your laptop or you've got a pre-built system. We know that these brands get subsidies and kickbacks from brand like Norton. You download MSI Afterburner and you get Norton 360 for Gamer with it. And it's like, why the hell would you want that? Well, that's because MSI Afterburner is making money through Norton, because Norton's bundling it with them and paying them a kickback for that. So you can start to remove a lot of the Windows bloatware that's built into it too. So let's just use this as an example here. I'm gonna uninstall, what's something I can get rid of here? Sticky notes. I never use sticky notes. Now here's the down part, or the downside, is a lot of the updates will put this shit back. It'll be like, oh, this isn't installed in your system. We should reinstall it. That was probably a mistake, not by design. Anyway, you can right click on sticky notes and click uninstall. Now, it says restore from back, or make a restore point. You can do that if you want to. We never do around here. Hit continue after unchecking that. What it will do first is, if you're uninstalling an actual program, and I'll demonstrate this in a second. And by the way, I need to also point this out. Every single one of these programs we're about to talk about, we've done a full deep dive into how to use those softwares. So you'll find links to each one of those videos in the description of this one. So if there's one you want to know more about, then just click on that link and you'll find a whole video about it, not just this quick high-level demonstration I'm showing you. But anyway, because I'm uninstalling a Windows function, if you will, a built-in Windows app, you can see right here, it's already left all of these locations in these files for, remnants, if you will, of what's left over of that piece of software or that app. So you can click select all and then click delete. Are you sure? Say yes. And that's it for that one. If we were doing software, let me go over here to the uninstaller, which is software. Let's say we want to uninstall, let me see, I'm gonna uninstall fan control. I haven't been using that in quite a while on this system. Click uninstall. The first thing it's gonna do is try to use whatever built-in uninstaller that the app has already. So it's not gonna go in and just nuke the files. It wants the uninstaller to take care of itself, and then it will basically sweep what's left behind. So fan control uninstall is saying, are you sure you want to completely remove fan control? Say yes. Fan control was successfully removed from your computer. Now it's an indie app. Let's see whether or not they've actually removed everything, shall we? So we're gonna click advanced scan. Oh, we got all kinds of stuff left behind. So we're gonna select all, click delete, say yes. And there's even more leftover files and folders found after we got out of the registry. Click select all, delete, say yes. Now it is fully gone. Fun fact, there has only been one company that I have ever uninstalled using Revo Uninstaller, and then had Revo Uninstaller tell me nothing was left behind. And that was EVGA's own apps. More rip for the goat, if you will. Anyway, what I just showed you is pretty much all you need to know for all of the software. If there's nothing left behind, it'll tell you. So Revo Uninstaller is an absolute must as far as I'm concerned. Now there is a pay version that does even more things. I don't think it's necessary. So the uninstaller is all you need for the apps, and then even to go a step farther and to remove some of the built-in Windows apps. Anyway. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about monitoring of your system. More often than not, I get people that will message me and say, Jay, I think my system's overheating, but I'm not entirely sure. Having just any sort of sensor monitoring utility is very important. And the most powerful one out there, which has amazing logging capabilities as well, that allows you to export those logs into a CSV and then chart and graph this stuff so you can see it over time if you want, is Hardware Info 64. Hardware Info 64 is a free utility that will that will basically tap into every sensor in your system, and not just like temperature sensors, but I mean, it will actually show you what the upstream and downstream is of your network card. It'll show you the smart statuses of your drives. It'll show you all of the sensors, obviously when it comes to temperatures from your drives, from your graphics card, your CPU, your CCDs if you're running AMD. I mean, everything is visible to it. Now there's a couple of different ways you can use this. We tend to run sensors only here because that's all we need. But if you want to go a step farther, they have full mode, and if you hit start on that, it's not going to just show you the sensors like we have right here, because I'm running this test. This is one of the cards I repaired, and I've been doing lots of constant tests to make sure it's truly good to go. And I've got it running just sensors mode on this machine. But over here, you can see this has more of a GUI built in with it that shows you some visual aspects to it as well. So you can see over here, this is the CPU active clocks. So let's say if you were running an AMD system and you wanted to check for core parking or something like that, like is my X3D CPU or my core parking CPU parking cores like it's supposed to, you could see that actively right here. You can see the ratios for whatever the CPU's multiplier ratio is. You can see, like, this is obviously a 14900K system. We can see the stepping, we can see the code name, we can see everything we want to know about this system. We can see our memory timings, our drive speeds. This is one of the ways you can verify whether or not maybe you're bifurcating a drive down to a slower speed or a GPU down to a slower speed. It shows you all of this right here. Now we, like I said, tend to run sensors only on this, which for me shows me just about everything that I need. And on sensors only, it can be a little overwhelming at first. So what you're gonna see here on the left is what the current value is, the minimum value, the maximum value, and the average. So maximum is probably gonna be the one you care about the most. That's if you're running a long test like this. Like I can see that my Astral over here is max temperature that the GPU ever reached was 70.4. The RAM hit 76. It's currently at 64.6 on the core and 70.0 on the RAM, because I sped up the fans a little bit. I wanted to know if I added a few more percent of fan curve, what was the effect, and I can see the temps have trended downward. So you can see all that over here, same thing with voltages and such. But it can be very overwhelming because there's a lot of sensors and things that may not even be all that important to you. So let's say there's something you didn't want to see. Let's say I don't care about my network speed right here, right? Like I just don't care about any of that. So you can shift click and grab a bunch of stuff at once. Let's just say, you know what, I'm not gonna take Windows way errors out of there, because it's nice to know if your system's slightly unstable, you might get some corrected errors that will show there on an error counter, but it won't blue screen your system. So it's just a nice thing to see. So, but I'm gonna grab all the network stuff because I just don't care about any of that. Shift click, right click, and hide, and then it will be gone. And the reason why I do this is if I'm doing logging, every single one of these is going to be a column. Like you get into the triple letters worth of columns. That is a lot of columns, and it's gonna automatically do its polling rate at 2000 milliseconds or 2 seconds. If we hit the gear down here, you can change this to 1000 milliseconds, or every 1 second, basically take a picture, add it to the CSV, and by picture I mean just all of these values are gonna be just shoved into the CSV every second and separated by a comma. Hit set. If you don't hit set, it doesn't save that number. And then hit OK, and now you can see we're updating even faster. But I don't want to have a bunch of clutter in there. So you can just shift click and remove all the stuff that, like animation error average. I don't know what that means. Apparently we have 16,521.12 milliseconds worth of animation error. I don't know what that is. Not useful to me. So anyway, this is a very important utility when it comes to just keeping an eye on your system. If you know how to use Excel or Google Sheets, you can record on this and you can spit that out, and this is how we get a lot of our charts and stuff. And it just allows you to take these numbers and turn them into a visual reference. Watch the full guide on this if you want to know how to do that. I'm not going to show you that today, but that's a pretty important one in my opinion to have this on your system, because you'll never wonder again whether or not you're overheating or what are my voltages running at. Like currently my vid is at 1.443, it dropped to 1.3, 1.43, it's Intel. Now let's say you want to talk about monitoring or modifying or adjusting your graphics card. The specific utility that we use for that, which is still the GOAT as far as I'm concerned, even though all the GPU manufacturers have their own built-in utilities, is MSI Afterburner. Fortunately, there's been an update. It's on 4.6.6 as of making this video that came out in October of 2025. Prior to that, it had been more than almost 3 years since we had seen a full version update. Because of the whole Russia-Ukraine thing and the developer actually being in Russia, because of the embargo and all that stuff, MSI couldn't pay him, et cetera, et cetera. It was a very sucky thing, but it's all back to, apparently it's been worked out now where there's been an update. Now, whether or not it's by the same developer, I don't know. All I know is that it's on 4.6.6 and there's been some changes to it that I've been asking for and wanting for a long time, which is nice to see. So MSI Afterburner will allow you to not only monitor your graphics card, but it will show you other things in your system. If you double click on the graph, it'll pop it out, and then you can actually expand this if you want. So you can see it's monitoring GPU 1 and 2. GPU 1 in this system is the 4090 that's on here, and then GPU 2 is the UHD 770, which is the iGPU built into the 14900K. But you don't have to monitor all that. You can right click this and then you can say, just go properties. And then in this drop down right here, wherever there's a check mark on the left, that's what's going to be shown in the graph. So as you can see, clearly there is a lot more stuff being graphed that will even fit on the screen. So obviously we don't need all that. This is a nice way though, outside of hardware info, although in hardware info, you can do this as well. In fact, let me go back real quick. I apologize. This is important too, because MSI has a nice graphing feature, but so does hardware info 64. That doesn't require you to have to spit it out into Excel. Let's just say you want to look at it and you don't need to present it later. You just want to know over time. If you were to say, okay, I want to graph my GPU core temperature right now. If you double click this, it pops it out into a graph right there. And then you can expand this and you could just look over time. Like you could leave a fur mark or something running like this and you can see what your temperature is doing over time. So I just wanted to point that out. I forgot to mention that. Any of these values, if you double click them, will pop it out into a graph. And you can do more than one at a time. They just keep stacking. So there you go. But back to MSI Afterburner. If you are running Afterburner and you don't want to graph like vid usage, bus usage, and all that stuff, just remove the check mark from the left. That's it. Afterburner is also what we use to get those numbers that show up on the screen. When you guys have asked us, like when I'm doing a live demo and it shows the CPU usage and GPU usage, GPU temperature, frames per second, and all that, that's all MSI Afterburner. Also using the RTSS server, which is downloaded with MSI Afterburner, and MSI Afterburner works in conjunction with. So if you want to show that, click the gear, scroll over to on-screen display, and then right now nothing is selected. So you see how the more button right here, which is what we'd want to click, is actually grayed out. That's because we haven't told Afterburner to monitor anything yet. So you see right here, let's say we want to take a look at GPU 1 temperature, you have to check show an on-screen display. So as soon as I check that, it shows right there, hit apply. Now if we go back to on-screen display, the more button shows up. This brings up the RTSS control panel, and then we can change the size of our on-screen and all of that. I like to set my application detection to high. Some games simply won't hook though. It has to hook into the API to be able to get that information, and some games anti-cheat actually won't allow that to happen. So just know, if you're having a hard time getting games to show the live FPS and such, that might be by design. The game might be intentionally blocking hooking of the API because a lot of cheats take place at an API level as well. So that's one of the reasons why RTSS doesn't work in some titles. Afterburner is not just a monitoring tool, it's also an overclocking and an undervolting tool. So for instance, if we wanted to, let's say, undervolt or maybe reduce the power limit to a 5090, 5080, 4090, whatever, you can just go to the power limit slider here. It's always gonna be 100% by default. You can reduce that. Let's say we only wanna allow 90% power. And a lot of the times you'll find that even at 90% power, you can still get full clocks out of your high-end graphics cards without all the heat to go along with it. But more importantly, you can also adjust your fan curves and your fan profiles. GPU fan profiles are going to be subject to whatever the designer of the cooler and the manufacturer felt is the happy medium between performance and acoustics. And we all know that the fans can get pretty loud on modern GPUs, but if you're like me, I personally always lean onto the side of performance over acoustic, so I'm okay with having my fans be very loud and blast because I'm a loud gamer. I either have headphones on or a very loud sound system going. I don't care if the fans are making noise. I'd much rather have my graphics card just run as cool as possible for peace of mind. And the idea that it's making my graphics card last longer, although that's kind of a placebo effect, it doesn't really affect the lifespan of your system. They are rated to last their full life expectancy at max temperatures, but that's a whole other debate about modern electronics and whether or not that's true or not. But if you want to make your fan, so right now they're clearly 0 RPM fans. You can see right now the fan percent is at 0. If I click enable user defined software, this is now the fan curve that's user defined. So you can see it stays at 0 RPM all the way to 50 degrees. And then at 50 degrees, it'll jump on at 50%. I don't think that's like necessary to let it sit there idling like that. So what I would do is I would probably just pull this up to like 30%, and then I would leave a bit of a slope on there rather than just having it be an abrupt turn on of the fans. So if you just click on the line, you can add as many points as you want to make that as soft and smooth of a line as you want. But now if I hit apply, the fans are now turning, and they just turned on at 52%. That's because it was at 52C. So you can see how 0 dB is nice because it means less dust, it means less noise, but it also means your graphics card's sitting there being passively cool. Now you can get away with 0 dB in certain cases. This is an open air chassis, so clearly it was getting no airflow. But if you're in a standard horizontal orientation and you have an updraft PC with fans blowing up from the bottom, you'd be surprised how much those bottom fans can keep that graphics card cool without the fans ever having to turn on. So obviously your mileage is going to vary depending on what your circumstances are. But it's already dropped down 11 degrees since I turned it on. Still can't hear them. And that's a nice thing that you can come in here and take advantage of custom fan curves and monitoring at the same time. Now let's say you don't want to have Afterburner running all the time, because if I was to shut down Afterburner now and hit the X, the fans immediately turn off. You can't really see them on camera now, but the fans turn off because they're only active while MSI Afterburner is running. Unless you open this back up. As soon as I open it back up, the fans will start turning again. So they went from 0 back up to 43. If I hit the save button and I save it to a profile and I click this button that says startup, it will apply this to the driver at startup, even if MSI Afterburner isn't running. Now here's the downside. If you accidentally say, I want to do a 1000 megahertz overclock, the system will immediately hang. And what's going to happen is if you save that to that profile and it's set to start that profile on Windows startup, your driver will load, MSI Afterburner will load that profile, and you will go into a crash loop. And the only way to get yourself out of that is to boot into safe mode and go into Afterburner and fix your profile. Just want to put that out there. Ask me how I know. There have been plenty of times I've accidentally done that, and then I get myself into the crash loop of hell because I can't get it to stop loading unless you go into safe mode. One last mention, you'll probably notice if you downloaded it for the first time right now, it does not look like mine. That's because in my opinion, the new interface is terrible. I'm not even sure where it's at, to be honest. Is it, oh, see, look, that's terrible. That's so ugly. Look at this. Anyway, if you just go all the way to the right to user interface and you click the drop down here in the middle, these are all the different designs. Right, this is the one it looks like actually when you first load it now. This is okay, but I prefer the old school one. My brain just knows that layout and it makes sense to me, even though this is all exactly the same thing. Let's also do some honorable mentions here on how you might use MSI Afterburner. As you can see right here on this system, I have FurMark that's running. It's basically nothing but a fuzzy donut. You'd be surprised how hard rendering all those fibers of hair while moving is on a GPU. So if you were to run FurMark while having Afterburner open, or in this instance here, actually Afterburner is open over here. Let me show you if you don't believe me. There it is. So having Afterburner open, I can change my fan profile, change it overclock profile if I want, and see how the card is reacting to it while Hardware Info 64 is open and logging. You don't need to go that far with it though. You can literally just have firmark running over here, choose your resolution, and then say run test. Running the test will be an infinite loop like that. If you do a benchmark, then it will spit out a score, obviously. But that's one way you can use Afterburner in validating like whether or not your GPU maybe needs a repaste, if it's old, if you find if it's overheating and throttling by just using utilities like that. And then of course, Heaven is an absolute must for anyone that just wants to give Steve the middle finger. Now, while we're on the subject of graphics cards, AMD and NVIDIA, just like every other developer, wants to make the installation process as fast as possible. And one of the ways that they do that is by reusing components of previous driver installs when installing a new driver if the version of it hasn't changed. Not everything in the driver is new. For instance, your driver, for the most part, just contains profiles that tells your graphics card not only how to communicate with the API and Windows and the scheduler and all that such, but it also tells the graphics card what game it's running and what settings to apply. Not just settings by like, anti-aliasing and all that sort of stuff, but just knowing how the card should behave with that title and that engine, etc. That's why every time there's a new title that comes out, there's always a new driver from either NVIDIA or AMD. That way you can get the most efficient and best crash-free, usually, experience, although that hasn't been the case in the last several years. AI-written drivers, need I say more? Anyway, but I digress. What I was trying to say was, the drivers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, approaching a gigabyte at this point. But to make the installation faster is it will kind of identify like, okay, all of these files are being untouched, leave those files and let's just overwrite the new ones that we need to overwrite. If you do that enough times, or you start getting enough crashing or potential corruption in the driver profile, even if you install a new driver and it hangs on to those old files that are having problems, the problem can persist. The best way to make sure that you are getting brand new, fresh files every time is to use a program called DDU, or Display Driver Uninstaller. Now, Display Driver Uninstaller will go in kind of like Revo Uninstaller does, but at a driver level, and make sure every single instance of that driver and every single file left behind is completely swept away. There's a couple things you need to know here first of all. One, it's best to do it without an internet connection. Disconnect from your wireless or turn off the wireless adapter or unplug your network adapter or your network cable to make sure that Windows doesn't go in and automatically fetch a driver from the internet. Now, the Windows drivers that are fetched are usually, they could be up to a dozen drivers behind, okay? Which is only gonna mean now that you potentially have the same problem now of if you're installing a driver on top of an old driver. It's just, what's the point of DDUing if you're gonna do that anyway? Even if you click perform clean install in the driver, it still does not truly perform a fully clean install. So DDU is the only way to truly do that. Now, DDU also works best in safe mode. Safe mode is where it can go, because if you disconnect the driver while you're in a standard Windows environment, weird things can potentially happen. So DDU has detected that you are not in safe mode. For a better cleanup without issues, it's recommended that you reboot into safe mode. Now, you don't have to. It's just saying it's recommended. We always go to safe mode around here, but obviously because we're screen capping in OBS, we can't do that in safe mode and get the restarts and stuff. So anyway, I'm gonna say okay. Now here's the thing. By default, it doesn't bring up the boot into safe mode menu. To do that, you have to click options, and then you can see all the way down here in the bottom of advanced options, there's enable safe mode dialog. Not recommended until you've tested safe mode manually. That's just making sure your system can go into safe mode without a problem. I've yet to come across a system that will run in normal mode but not safe mode, but they put it there for a reason. They're the developer and not me. Also, you would want to check prevent downloads of drivers, Windows Update, and Windows search for drivers for device. So as I said, if you don't want to disconnect the internet from your system, so that'll stop Windows from going and fetching the drivers for the graphics card when it sees like, hey, this is the basic VGA device, but I'm sure we have a driver for it. Let's go find it. Now, keep in mind, it will also turn off automatic driver install for all devices, whether you install a new network card, if you install a new, I don't know, PCIe device or PCI device, whatever, it'll stop all auto fetching for that. So my recommendation would be Turn this on while you're doing DDU and then getting a new driver in. And then when you're done, go back into the menu and uncheck that. That way Windows can automatically install drivers as needed for new devices when you plug in USBs and all that sort of stuff. So if you leave this checked and you start noticing you plug something into your system and then your keyboard's not working right or whatever because it's not gonna go and fetch the latest USB driver for whatever peripheral you plug in or whatever, it's probably this setting. But with that said, here's what we're gonna do now. So I'm not gonna actually uninstall my driver. I can't because of OBS, but I'll show you how to do it. If you click select device type, you can see we can do this with audio and GPU. We're gonna click GPU. This is an NVIDIA graphics card. If it was an AMD card, you'd click AMD. If it was Intel, you'd click Intel. If you just wanted to wipe everything, because it could potentially have a bunch of these drivers installed. If you've ever had AMD in the past and then you switched, we're on an Intel system, so obviously it's gonna have an Intel video driver because of the iGPU, the 770 that's in there. You could say all GPUs if you want, but in this instance, we would just be doing this with NVIDIA, and then we would do clean and restart. So basically what it does, as soon as you hit clean, it's gonna disable the driver. Your screen will probably turn off for a second and come back on. Your FPS will be crap. You'll see a whole bunch of stuff happening down here in the log. And then when it's done, it will automatically initiate a restart of your system. Once you've done the restart, that is when you'll install the new driver. Now, ideally, you would have already gone online and downloaded the new driver, whether it be from AMD's website or NVIDIA's website. Then you would just install that driver as normal. And what I do is I never say express. I still always hit like advanced and then clean install and all that. I'm a creature of habit and I do it no matter what. And then once you're done, that is when you can rule out driver issues or any weirdness of your driver potentially causing any of your GPU stuff that's initiated this process anyway. If you still have problems that persist beyond that, the problem is more than likely not your display driver. But this is the only way to do it and have it be perfectly clean. All right, the last one here is definitely an advanced tool. This is WinAero Tweaker. We do have a long video on this where we barely scratched the surface, but basically WinAero Tweaker is an advanced tool that I'm going to put, hopefully Phil will put a bunch of flashing disclaimers on the screen. You can absolutely bork the crap out of your system by using this. WinAero Tweaker is nothing more than a GUI that gives you basically all the knobs and switches that are built into Windows at your disposal, including ones you should not be touching. Now, the only reason I personally ever use WinAero Tweaker, and I know Phil has used this for a lot of other things, is to disable Windows updates. For me, especially when it comes to like our test rigs and stuff, we need them to be as locked down and unchanged as possible. We want full control over when those systems do their updates. Therefore, disabling Windows Update in WinAero Tweaker is the only way to truly turn off updates. I cannot tell you how many people during the whole Windows updates causing SSD issues, how many people were telling me, I went in and told Windows and paused Windows updates for the 5 weeks or whatever it allowed me to do, and I came home the next day and it still did the update without me telling it to, because Windows will still decide, regardless of what you said, what you do and don't want. It will decide for you. We will tell you what you need, regardless of what you select, is kind of how Microsoft works, right? So by disabling Windows updates here, and then clicking disable Windows updates and notifications, that's it. We've now enabled, we've now toggled that. But if you want to use it for more things than just Windows updates, I mean, you can change like the Windows border type, the padding and all this stuff. So let's say you've gone in here and started messing with things and now everything just kind of looks weird. If you go over here to actions and click reset all tweaks, it will show you everything you've done, and then you can individually say, no, I want to keep that one and undo the rest. So you can quickly revert and undo your tweaks, but this allows you to go in here and just in one spot have full control over all of the Windows functions, all of them. I mean, literally every single one of them, even developer tools. But anyway, it's all here. We have a full video on this. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it here. We've already gotten a long video going for this guy here, but this is just definitely more advanced. WinAero Tweaker is a very nice one. It's very powerful. It's also very capable of breaking your system. So use with caution. And I would say it's very important to also save your tweaks, because Windows has a habit of, during updates, if you've left them on, going and reverting things that you've made the way you want them, because again, Microsoft wants it to be the way they want it. So WinAero Tweaker is about one of the only ways you can take control of that back. All right. Honorable mention time. Those are our 5 top, I just said 5. These are our 5 top, I haven't been to Hawaii in a while. I don't know why I'm doing this. Anyway.
3 glasses.
Yeah, I'll take 3 glasses, please. Wait, 3 glasses. Anyway, now that my brain is officially fried, those are the 5 absolute must-haves as far as we're concerned. Revo Uninstaller, Hardware Info 64, MSI Afterburner, DDU, and WinAero Tweaker. But back to GPU stuff, Tech Power Up GPU-Z is a very nice utility to have. It will tell you even more information about your graphics card. For instance, let's say you wanted to start playing around with custom BIOS. You need to kind of know what BIOS you currently have, right? If you want to do it safest, you're going to want to make sure that the BIOS that you're currently using is all the same except for maybe the last 2 numbers or the hexadecimals on the back end of the BIOS version. So for instance, right here, this BIOS version is 95.02.3c.c0.f4. So if we find a driver that was, or not a driver, but a VBIOS that was 95.02.3c.c0.eo or E0, whatever, then you know it's gonna more than likely work just fine on that card. You would probably have to do an NV flash like -6 override because of the sub ID mismatch. But I digress. That's getting into a little bit more advanced stuff. You can see here, right, what are you currently running at PCI 416? No, we're not. We're running at 4x8, but that's because we have full drives utilized on this board for when we did the bifurcation video. We never took them off, so we're bifurcating that down. But you wouldn't know that. Maybe in Hardware Info 64 if you went digging for it inside of the full control panel. But here, it's like right here in your face. But this is also the way that reviewers figured out that there were missing ROPs from the 5090s. Otherwise, how would you have known? It's just people were gonna look at this and go, wait a minute. I forget what the number was, but why is there only 176 ROPs and not 192 or whatever it was supposed to be? And that's how the ROPs issues was figured out in the beginning. But the cool thing here is you can also see, for instance, where is it? You can also see what your boost clocks, and more importantly, whether or not resizable bar is enabled in your system. So honorable mention, GPU-Z is something everyone should have. It's free, it allows you to save your BIOS and all that stuff too. Don't think we have a video on that one, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Go and look around. It even has a sensors tab where you can see all the sensors on your graphics card right here in real time as well. And then it will even tell you, why your graphics card might be throttling, whether it's voltage related, power related, or temperature related. Or just you hit your max clocks that are in that BIOS. All right, guys, there we go. Those are our top 5. What's yours? Are you using these? And do you think there's a better alternative? If so, put it down in the comments below so that you can let other people figure it out. And as a community, we can take control of our systems again before they take control of us in the future.